Well, good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Airini, and I am honoured to be Provost and Vice President Academic here at the University of Saskatchewan. The university being located in Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of Métis. And we welcome the opportunity to remember relationships here with those who have been working for millennia to advance teaching, research, and service. It's our hope today that our discussion around our virtual fireside will help build on those relationships and our understandings of what's possible through our teaching, research, and service, and to build an inclusive space here at our university, inclusive of all, remembering that we are meeting today also within Black History Month. And what an incredible month it has been to date, with just a fabulous lineup of activities, including today's fireside. Thank you so much to the organisers for all of the events through the month. Charlene, thank you for looking after us today. And Paddy, thank you for your oversight. And thank you especially to Professor Lukong, who is here today for this discussion, a virtual fireside chat in Black History Month about what helps or hinders universities committed to inclusivity and academic excellence. In a moment, I'm going to begin with introductions, and then we're going to move into the fireside time. Professor Lukong and I have prepared some questions to guide the discussion. There may be some things that come to mind for you and being here around the fireside as well. So keep those in mind, and then after some time of Professor Lukong and I chatting together, we're going to open up the chat box and also pull back a little bit so that we can widen the discussion. It's almost as if you're pulling your chairs in closer around the fire at that time, and we all become part of an open discussion together. We're very fortunate that in addition to Professor Lukong being here today, we have Rifat Sahan, who is the president of the Graduate Students Association. And Rifat is going to, hello there, Rifat is going to moderate the open discussion time, and then she will also provide closing remarks for our virtual fireside chat today. So with that, could I just invite us all to, what do we say, to open our videos so we can see one another, and we'll have a little wave so that we can see who's here. Here we go. Here's everyone. Yay. There you all are. That's lovely. Great to see you. Thank you all so much for coming in. You're welcome to keep the cameras on if you like, but I understand too that you may be eating lunch right now. So cameras off is fine as well. Thank you for being here. I'm going to introduce Professor Lukong now, known to many, I'm sure, a new colleague for me to come to know as I make my way through the university these days. I've just finished 1 year and so enjoying getting to know more members of our amazing university community. Professor Lukong is professor in biochemistry, microbiology, and immunology with the College of Medicine at the University of Saskatchewan. His specialist work in breast tumor analysis and medicine has been profoundly important and has led to the establishment of the Lukong Laboratory, which is attracting both grants that are federal and local and international, but also international interest. So he has attracted a number of students who have come specifically to be part of the Lukong Lab here at the university. And it's just so lovely, Professor Lukong, to see the collaborative research publications coming out as well. And I think that speaks to your commitment to mentoring, which is really so important to your ethic as a leading scholar in this area. So please do take a look through the biography materials on site. There you'll see that this is a researcher who is both a specialist in this area of cancer, and also a contributor to a national movement to expand the numbers of Black scientists that we have in Canada, and to ensure that not only are the numbers growing, but by numbers, but there is a retention and a growth in career as well. This has been a journey over many years, and that most recently was expressed in the very successful conference that was held online, of course, that was about the celebration of Black scientists' research, particularly in the STEM area. And we're going to hear something of that today. So it seems so opportune here during Black History Month to have this fireside chat and the time when I'm learning so much, and I'm so grateful for the chance to meet with my newly known colleague to talk about how will we address the impacts of biases and inequalities that have stood in the way, continue to stand in the way of inclusive excellence. At our university, we've committed to diversifying our faculty and student complement, to enriching our academic community and building a more inclusive environment. Most recently, we committed further at a national level through signing the Scarborough Charter on anti-Black racism and Black inclusion in Canadian higher education, which our President Stoichev, signed on our behalf in December 2021. What now then could or should happen, and what now is happening for inclusive excellence at universities? What lens does Black History Month bring to this very question? So in our discussion today, we're going to move through what are the points of inspiration for Professor Lukong, what are the areas for which we could do better in terms of inclusive excellence, why is it important to grow and retain Black scholars, how can we go about doing this? And we're going to have some solid advice come from Professor Lukong based on his work as a scholar here, and then on this national front as well. So yes, please, I hope you've got your coffee and your nibbles handy as we work through this lunchtime together. And please keep your questions ready as we open up this discussion, and your comments, discussion, what will help us move forward, and what are the lessons that will really help shape the inclusive, excellent environment for our university and universities across Canada. So with that, Professor Lukong, warm welcome to you, aresi nia, to you, and in my ancestral language, talo falava. Thank you for this space to talk today.
And in my language, I will say beriwo.
Thank you to you as well. So here we are, we've pulled our chairs up around the fire. We're welcoming the warmth that's around, and we're just so grateful to have this chance to visit and talk together. And I wonder, just to start this off, I wonder, how did you get started in medicine, Professor Lukong?
So I have to go through my journey, which is like a long journey, but I'll try to make it short.
Okay.
I was born in Cameroon, which is West or Central Africa, in a region that's called Kumbo, and we speak the language that's called Lamso. There are 250 different dialects in Cameroon. So every 50 kilometers, things are different. So there's that cultural diversity already where I come from. Also born in Cameroon, which is bilingual, just like Canada, English and French. So you can see that mosaic, just like Canada, Cameroon looks the same, even though French is the more dominant population there, Francophone community. But I went to a private secondary and high school run by Reverend Brothers, Sacred College in Cameroon. And back in the day that the government was quite rich, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship. This scholarship took me from Cameroon to the UK. And to the UK was there for me to do biochemistry. It was a special scholarship to do biochemistry and French literature. So even though I have a science background, what the government figured is that let's send somebody with a science background to do technical and medical translation, given that Cameroon is bilingual, just like Canada. So I went to Keele University, and then I did 2 degrees, one in biochemistry, and then the other one in French literature. So I came out from there with the 2 degrees. That took me now, which is part of this scholarship journey, it took me to University of Montreal. And there I did the master's in medical and technical translation. And in the same university, then I switched to biochemistry, then got the master's in biochemistry and stayed there and had my PhD, started my postdoc at Harvard, finished in Montreal, and then I got my position here. So that's how I went through the process academically. But why the College of Medicine and why medicine has to do with the research that I developed. So when I was in the UK, back in the day, I had a serious research project, and that was my first mentor that I had, who was the supervisor of this project that has to do with lysosomes, just to try and study the rate of permeability of lysosomes, which are like suicide bags that you have inside a cell. I went to Montreal, and the reason that Dr. Michel Poitier accepted me in the lab is because he was working on lysosomal storage diseases. So I got that connection there. Then while I was there, I identified new mutations that new mutations for a disease that's called sialidosis. And while I was there then, I finished my PhD, just didn't know where to go. And this is very, very important for the topic that we're talking today, because again, I'm all about mentorship and mentorship drive. And my challenges started from that master's in biochemistry all the way, because when I finished that PhD, didn't have a mentor, I didn't know where to go. And I was just looking around just like that. And I applied to Harvard, got the position there, but nobody guided me. I went to Harvard, stayed there for a year, realized that I can't stay there with my family because it's too expensive. I moved back to Montreal, so I was just moving like that. So my journey started from Cameroon. The interest itself in what I do today, which is breast cancer research, started from that lab in Montreal at McGill, where I was doing my postdoc. Then I developed this interest in this breast tumor kinase, which is overexpressed in mammary tumors, but not in the normal mammary glands. So it was very, very interesting. And I was fortunate that I could take that project with me, and fortunate also that this university accepted me. I had other choices, but I chose this for reasons that I can explain a little bit later.
Well, I think the good fortune is ours, Professor Lukong. And it's wonderful to have this chance to get to know you some more. I'm just trying to think if I know any others who've got this combination of biochem and French literature.
No, that would be very rare, because nobody. I wouldn't have chosen that, right? That's what my scholarship said, and unfortunately for the government, I stayed here. Or fortunately for Canada, I stayed in Canada.
Exactly. Yeah. Fortunately.
Yeah.
So we've heard right away about the importance of mentoring. I wonder, can you think of a time when mentoring has helped you with your career?
So if I go to the 3 main mentors that I've had in my life, and they just happened just by chance, is that when I went to University of Keele and I was doing biochemistry, my supervisor was Kenneth William. Kenneth William is the person who actually brought out that interest in biochemistry that I didn't know I even had. And when we came to our first exam in the first term there, I remember contacting my dad saying that, the exam is coming up. First time abroad, I don't know how I'm gonna do. I don't know how it's gonna look like. But anyway, I did very well. And that's how I got that connection with Dr. Williams. And he's the person who actually decided that he was gonna supervise my project on lysosomes. And I did work then that I haven't even done today. That's how complex it was. So that was my number 1 mentor. The second mentor and the most important mentor for me is Michel Poitier, because when I finished my degree in my master's in medical technical translation, and I knew that I'm not going back to Cameroon, then I wanted to do biochemistry. And that was the most challenging part. And that's the first time that I started experiencing in my life that there were barriers or hurdles, because everything has been so nice and smooth based on merit. And that's how I got abroad, because obviously my parents could not pay my flight to leave Cameroon. So, but now I have a challenge that I need to look for a lab. And the first challenge was even being admitted into biochemistry, because coming from linguistics, biochemistry was reluctant to accept me, because I believe that that degree that I say I have in biochemistry must be like a minor, like something. So again, just the absence of mentorship, the absence of who to turn to. I didn't have anybody to turn to, but I had to prove to the department that what I have is a full degree. And the only way for me to do it, I actually took a flight to the UK to my department, met Professor Williams, who wrote a letter for me to bring back to the department. I got admission. First challenge, however, came that first challenge like that. The second challenge that I never thought of was that I didn't realize that even if that the admission itself is only on condition that you get a lab. Getting a lab was the biggest challenge, because everybody turned me down for various reasons. It might be because I'm coming from linguistics. It might be because I was away for 4 years from biochemistry, several reasons. But Michel Poitier told me that I'm going to take you in my lab and I'll try you for a year. If it works, you'll stay. And I stayed there for 5 years, got my PhD. So that was my mentor. And I had another mentor also who was the one who supervised my technical translation thesis, which we had translated a book that's called Corn Cholesterol. And my guide there was Professor Hannah. So those are the three mentors that I've had, but that just happened to be there, right place, right time.
Yes, now that's interesting when I think about, that idea of being right there, right place, right time. And this leadership role that you have now in the Canadian Black Scientists Network, and that you were recently part of the team that hosted the very successful BE STEM conference, Black Excellence in Science, Technology, Engineering, Maths, and Medicine or Health. That sounds like that's about being right there at the right time for Black scientists. So I wonder, why is this Canadian Black Scientists Network important to you?
So the network is so important because, again, if you listen to that, my short journey that I made it short, the fact is that just the fact that I didn't have those mentors, I had those mentors by chance that were there. But I didn't even realize the importance of having a mentor that's visible, that's out there, because I was just newly abroad and I wasn't yet exposed to some of the challenges that maybe minorities might have. I wasn't exposed to that. So that wasn't like an issue to me, but if there was somebody like that, it would have helped, but there was nobody like that. There was nobody doing a PhD in biochemistry that was Black that I knew back then, let alone a professor that was known. So, but I didn't see that as a problem. I was just so fortunate that I had those mentors that were just there and believed in me and were there to guide me, coach me all the way. Now, when I got this position here, and then I started now going to conferences, again, you find the same thing. You go to conferences, you realize that most of these conferences, you are the only Black person there. But fortunately, I met Dr. Juliet Daniels, who is the co-founder of this network that I'm going to talk a little bit about in a second. Dr. Daniels happened to be doing breast cancer research like myself, and she's from McMaster. So we realized that there's a lot of things that we don't feel included when we go to some of these conferences. And then we started discussing the need of having a network. So in 2020, then Julia Daniels then met with Dr. Median Andrade and other groups of professors and they decided to form this network. So it was started in July 2020. It is called the Canadian Black Scientist Network. I didn't know about it when it started, but as soon as it started, then a few months after, Juliet contacted me that, oh, there is a network here that we just created, and he knew that I would be in. So I joined the network then after it's been founded. That's again in July or June, summer 2020 anyway. So the network brings together people that are like-minded, think alike, have the same goals, have had the same experiences, and we are all volunteers, and we're just determined that it is our place, it is our mission to make visible, elevate, celebrate, and connect Black scientists who are in this field of STEM. And the STEM is with the second M, because we talk about science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine, and health, just right across all sectors. So we created a network where we want to be inclusive when it comes to everybody that's in STEM. So that was the goal of the network. And under that, we have 3 pillars. But if you have another question, I can answer that before I go on.
Well, maybe it will connect with what I'm thinking about right now, because as I listen to you, I'm thinking about the opportunity to listen to a talk by Robin Maynard yesterday. And the speaker then talked about the possibility of creating a better future, a different future. And it might be that the 3 pillars relate to that. So when you think about the future and perhaps these 3 pillars, what do you see as the future for Black scientists? So
the future that we envisage for Black scientists, they actually fall under our 3 pillars. Our 3 pillars of this Canadian Black Scientist Network. And believe me, these 3 pillars that I'm going to talk about apply to almost every minority group.
Okay.
Intersectionally. So all groups. So we have 3 visions. Number 1 is to increase the intake and retention of Black youth in STEM. So it can still be to increase the intake and retention of Blacks at USAS or anywhere you are. Number 2, we want to increase the representation of Black Canadians as STEM researchers and practitioners. And number 3, we want to advocate for equitable practices in funding and awards. Why did we choose these 3 pillars? We choose these 3 pillars because our approach is actually data-driven. So we collect data, we present data to justify why it's important for us to pursue improvement in these 3 pillars that I talk about. Why? So, and if you think about the context of Canada, just to put it a little bit in context, we as Blacks form 3.5% of the population. When you start looking at students that are in the undergraduate section, for example, you see that that are 6% of them are Blacks. But now when you start going up to the PhD, it drops to 3%. You go to faculty, it drops to 2%. You go to leadership, it drops to 0.8%. So you see then that's why in all these sections, what are we talking in terms of the youth, or what are we talking in terms of researchers, there is a need to increase that representation. And we as a network, we are there to help, to find mechanism which can help. We are still in discussion, to find a mechanism that can help everybody, every university, Canada as a whole, to try and increase that representation, because there is clear underrepresentation of Blacks, especially in STEM field, at every stage.
So we're here at the University of Saskatchewan. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, well, then in that drive to make visible and to increase representation, what do you think our university could do to make sure that we are more inclusive and we're doing this in a way that's excellent for current and future Black scientists?
Well, I think that this university is already doing a great job, even if you think about it now that we have this forum that we have here for Black scientists, for not Black scientists, Black History Month. which I must say this university takes it very, very serious. But when you look at it, we're talking about the month of February, right? But the theme of this month is February and forever. The theme of Black History Month is February forever, celebrating Black history today and every day. So just giving this forum here, just to discuss my experiences, we actually help the university, right, to promote inclusion, because visibility is very, very important. I think that should be one of the most important things. It's really visibility. How do we promote visibility? How do we make sure that scientists or professors like myself are seen? My students know it, right? But if you think about it, then I had to go out to come in the sense that I went out, be part of this network, push it at the national level. Then it went into the news. And then that's when the university knew about me, you know. And I must say that even my colleagues don't even know what, they don't know this part of me, because almost as if the forum was not there for me to do it. And speaking to you, I don't want to, speaking to you almost as if that inclusivity was, or inclusiveness was lacking, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel it more and more, like it's here. I feel it more and more. So what can the university do? There's a lot that the university can do. But one thing that the university can do, and the university is already doing, is really to establish strong equity, diversity, and inclusion committees, strong and diverse. Diverse, just not physically, but people that are in that committee should actually also feel included when it comes to that diversity we're talking about. So, mm-hmm. So at the College of Medicine here, at least with the BMI and the APP, I'm a proud member of an ADI committee, and we're working hard there to ensure that, for example, that the candidate pool for faculty recruitment, that is quite large and diverse. And we're also there to monitor the process itself. We're also there to mitigate unconscious bias or even implicit bias. So the primary goal is to raise awareness of the issues that impact EDI within this university, within departments.
So I'm noting down these points because, you know, as I leave, I'm looking forward to having, you know, some immediate things that can be worked on, and then some structural pieces. So what I'm hearing is governance. The mm-hmm. committee structure needs to be there, and that we need to have the right people on those committees, and then being very proactive in procedures around recruitment and bias monitoring and training. Do you see any other areas that this university or other universities could be working on, or even this role that I am in, or we have faculty members here, we have students, things that you might have seen that really can help create that turnaround and move forward the making visible and the presence of Black scholars?
Yeah, I think that first of all, we have to collect data.
Okay.
We have to collect data, not only collect data, but disaggregate the data, right? Race, religion, social, country of origin, because when we disaggregate that data, we'll see better. So collect that data, disaggregate it. So we want to combine like a quantitative analysis with quantitative and qualitative data, then to know those barriers or experiences that students and even faculty might face. So, and then we create obviously a toolkit for intervention. How do we intervene if there's a problem? And down the road also curriculum enrichment programs, right? You know, so it's always nice to integrate not only Black-led science, but science from people from different origins in our curriculum where it's possible. You know, where it's possible is good to that will be able to do something like that. So I think at I think that and you want to make sure that those committees, yes, they are diverse, but you want to make sure that everybody feels included, because committees is one thing, but some committees have what we call a bandwagon effect. One person is dominant and everybody would tend to follow. And the reason that people follow one person, again, because they don't feel included. Maybe there's something like you just want to create an environment where people is going to be free to speak. Maybe move it out of the formal setting, like an office, and then just moving out like to a retreat type, or maybe just out to a coffee somewhere. Just like we're having this chat here, which is called Fireside, because I'm just relaxed, just talking, right? If you put this now in a different context, it might be too formal. So you want to do that to see if those committee members will interact more when you move it like that, because you want everybody, because when you choose somebody to come to a committee, it's because you are expecting contribution from them. If they come and they don't contribute, then it's not, then the committee itself is not, it's not very effective. So it's important to increase that diversity pool and then set up those committees and make sure that they're diverse also.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry to go finish. Please finish.
I was just going to finish we want also that even the administrative pool. So you go into students come in, the first people they interact with are secretaries, the administration. Those are the people that they see. And those are the people that they tend to see all the time. So you also want that environment also to be quite diverse, even though I don't have any problem with secretaries or everything is great, but I'm just saying that just giving that diversity, and it just makes things easier.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Professor Lukong. And as you say that, I'm thinking about things that I've been learning over this month about how important representation is and diversity in there, and then also connecting that with liberation and genuine, authentic progress, and being upfront about that there have been colonial struggles, and that we need to be willing to move beyond those as well. So there's a whole piece too that has been discussed over this month so far about experiences of racism and oppression. And I know yourself, you've said in one of the articles, and there are many that you've been part of, in this, making sure there's visibility there, that you've spoken of how we as Blacks are often underrepresented in conferences. We're not usually selected to give talks at major conferences. And so now you've got this network, so it's possible to showcase talents in the Black STEM community. So this is very important work, and we have others here today who are part of this work as well. And I think what it would be good to do would be to just open up for a discussion right now. We've got so many elements that we've looked at, your own journey, overcoming the barriers that are there, being proactive, talking about changes that universities and our own practices can be made. And so I wonder, Rifat, if I might be able to hand over to you now. We'll see if we can invite people to pull their chairs in closer.
Yeah.
On the fire, and make room for that person beside you. We've got one more person coming in here. Don't spill your cup of coffee as you sort of shuffle your chair in closer. But yes, I love this, Stella. Thank you so much for popping on your camera now so we can see you. You're right here with us by the fireside. And Rifat, over to you to help us with the discussion. Here's Patty as well. That's great. Oh, there's Dawn. Lovely to see you, Dawn. Joyce is here too. Paula, come on in, and let's with great thanks to
Hi, Joyce.
Joyce, lovely to see you. Over to you. But we're going to have a bit of a chat now.
Yes.
No, thank you, Dr. Lukong, for this discussion, and I was really enjoying the conversation between our provost and you. One of the things that I would like to appreciate that when you were emphasizing on the importance of data collection and non-aggregated data, because that really helps us to look into maybe department level or school level, like how many like grad students, like I'm thinking on the perspective of grad students. So how many grad students are there like representing Black community? Because from my experience at this university, I'm seeing like there are some particular departments who are doing really well in recruiting students from different diverse background, but then other departments, I think they have some way, like some way to go, like they need some time. But having this conversation and like extending the Black History Month beyond February, I think that's gonna make some changes in the next few months and next few years. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask, like what, like once you were a grad student, so what were your experience as a grad student when you were at the university, like being a person with Black community? Yeah.
So so when I was at university, okay, so I started my university at Keele University there in the UK, and funny enough, for the first 8 years I wasn't aware of a lot of things because I was just focused. Like I just had this. It's only when I decided to stay in Canada that I started looking at Canada and I started being aware, more aware even of my environment. So at Keele University, I wasn't even aware of it. We at Keele University, we stayed on campus. So I was on campus and I never went on holidays. So the holidays we stayed on, everybody will go on holiday, but all of us, we still stay on campus. We didn't have anywhere else to go. So I wasn't really exposed to anything, any experience that students maybe are facing today, because I think there are many more challenges today. We haven't even talked about one of the reasons that mentorship is so important for me is not the fact that that I think that I'm accountable to my student and for their success, because anybody that comes in my life, I make sure that they graduate, I make sure that they succeed, and I follow them through their career. That every single, even those that are prof today, they still rely on me for mentorship, because the experiences that I have, even though short in the sense that it started from when I started my master's, that I started realizing that there might be some barrier that maybe Black students might have, or minority students might have some problems. Even when I couldn't get admission into biochemistry, I haven't tried 10 different labs, I didn't even tie that to anything, prejudice or anything like that, because I was quite naive. But now running my lab and seeing the students that I have and guiding them through their lives, they open to me. Because that's another thing about mentorship, is that I think that's something that it might actually be lacking, is that we run different labs, right? We run labs on campus, but it's almost as if the students are there to work for us, which should be the other way around, right? So every student that comes into my lab is not there to help me get a grant, to help me get funding. That student is in my lab for me to mentor, teach, coach, and guide them through their career. And that's what university is all about. University is all about coaching, guiding, education, teaching, mentoring, and all of that. But that part is lacking. Now, when your environment, you run your environment like a business, like a small business that you have, then there's no way you can coach. So my experience comes from the exposure that I've had with my students, the difficulties that they've had, and that's where I've learned. Personally, I haven't had a lot of difficulties, but I learned from them. So I actually have a therapist that if I know that it's so serious, I send them there that I pay. Holy Labresh, that's the name of the therapist. Yeah. And I do that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That actually, I was going to ask another question about the key elements of mentorship among grad students, and I believe you answered that question already. So thank you so much. I see Dr. McDougall hands raised. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Rafat, and thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lukong, Erique, and Professor Airini, Provost Airini. Thank you so much for this lovely fireside chat on a snowy Friday afternoon. There's a person. There's a person on our campus in the introduction when our provost was talking about your background, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to make sure to make mention. So one of my colleagues, I'm a psychologist, so my home department is in psychology, and my colleague Ulrich Teuscher, who some of you might know, has a background in nursing and literature, comparative literature, and health psychology. And so maybe sometime I may need to do an introduction to the two of you, because you may need to share some stories. He is German by descent. Anyway, wonderful, wonderful person. So I actually did want to pick up a little bit on the mentorship question. Very important, and something here at the University of Saskatchewan that our Graduate Students Association and our College of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies have worked very hard on, is that getting that right. So what advice in your experience would you have, sort of a key piece of advice? What do you think is a critical success factor for you as a faculty supervisor? And then what's the critical success factor on the other side for the graduate students? What do they need to be thinking about as they enter into this environment? And do you think that's influenced, impacted specifically for our Black graduate students, or how do you make sense of that?
So, so in terms of my approach, when it comes to every student that comes to see me, my approach is that, and it goes also with the courses that I teach. So my philosophy of teaching is also connected to the way I mentor. For example, when you come into my course, obviously the marks and stuff like that, I make it clear that it's not terribly important. Students are afraid of taking anything that has biochemistry in it. But I teach the biochemistry of cancer. But before they know it, they are into biochemistry, because just of the way I handle that course. It's a course that I developed myself 10 years ago. So, and when I mark students, I start from 100 going down and not from down going up. So I give the benefit of the doubt right from the beginning, because you don't have students that are just homogeneous. They come from different areas. So sometimes as you're marking, we have to be aware of the bias that you can introduce while marking, because students, right, most of them don't have the same level in terms of language skills. So I take all of that into consideration when I do my marking. So that's important. That's number one, in terms of my approach, in terms of teaching. Number two, it has to do with how, even though I'm doing it for the university, but the university doesn't realize it. So students, we get all these prospective students every single day. Do you know that I reply to all of them? I reply to all of them, because as much as you think that this one student that sends you this application or interest to work in your lab, and you don't reply, they don't write back. You don't reply to them. They don't bother even finding somebody else. There might be a star student there that wants to come to the Lukong lab, but because somebody X didn't reply to them, they won't even bother writing to me to see if they can come. Some other universities will get that. So I'm doing my best to make sure that I reply to all of them. It's just 3 lines. Thanks for your interest in my lab. Good luck in your search. What's the other thing? I always tell them that they should contact me anytime in the future, something, or stay in touch. Those are 3 lines that I have it. Stay in touch. So I always do that. So that's my approach when it comes now to the academics. Now, when it comes to my lab, every student so I have a list of volunteers that are lined up just to be a volunteer in my lab. So they come in my lab, they sit here, and make sure that they know that they will succeed, which means that if I said you are coming into my lab, I'm accountable to you, and I'm accountable for your success. You come to my lab, that's very important. Which means that students come in at different levels. Some have different skills, but you are the mentor. You are the one to look at them and see what they are, see what skills they have to develop. So my lab is also a lab where I try to put them through a career path. So right from the first day, they sit 2 hours in my office. Right from that first day, I want to know where you want to go. If you don't know, I'll help you try to start guiding you, because that goes through all my coaching has to do with that. And all the students that I've coached in the past have actually been where they are. Siam is a professor at Arkansas. Raghu is at Harvard, Boston University, wants to become a professor. Some that don't want to go to medicine, I just know how I'm going to guide them. So they have that faith in me. They have that credibility in me. They know that I'm open, know that I'm here for them. So that's the approach that I take for my students. And this word actually goes around. I'll give you one last example. Looking at the time, I talk too much. Give you one last example is that there is I have a postdoc who has had the chance to go to other labs that have funding, but didn't go because she heard about me and wants to work in my lab. She's actually waiting for that funding to come. And what she's doing, she's already written a review article that we just published, and she's not even part of the lab in terms of, but she just wants my mentorship because of what she said. So that's what I would do to students. What students have to do then is that they have to sit, this also comes from the university. The university has to have all these little students associations that are all inclusive. They might be different, but they should be also inclusive, because students get lost a lot when they come. And the biggest issue, as you might know today, is the mental health. We have to always take that into consideration when we look at students coming. We have to weigh our words, know how to speak to them, know how to guide them, because students come here, you don't know where they're coming from, right? And with the pandemic recently, there are students that are facing a lot of challenges. They are here, they can't go home. Sometimes the parents also are affected by COVID. Some have already died, but we don't know. But once they come into an environment, when they come to your lab, and if you look at them as your worker, you don't care. But if you look at them as somebody that you are trying to train, you will care.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer and that inspiration. I'm thinking that might be time to try to come over into the lab and be a postdoc. I think you might need a psychologist. I'd be happy to kick around there.
Thank you
so much.
And
I see my other colleague.
They hit my door open like this, no appointment.
Yeah, we see Dawn's hand is raised up. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful. And in fact, I actually put on my fireplace because I knew.
Oh, great.
So I just appreciate your words. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Thank you, Provost Airini, for moderating this. It's such an important conversation. We're at a particular really exciting time in our university where we are boldly going forward with EDI strategies, and that strategy is flowing through research, is flowing through teaching, it's flowing with our relationships with community. And one thing that I listen to you speak and I'm inspired. I'm watching you be a caretaker and a mentor and, really committed to what you're doing. And then I see that, there will be demands on your time from people like me who want to speak with you about the research strategies. And there will be demands on your time. How are we going to make this flow through our teaching? How are we going to make this flow? And I've had so many conversations more so with my Indigenous colleagues who speak to, as you do, with passion, sincerity, like an authentic desire to do better and to be people who are helping and engaging. But I sometimes think, what about your health? How do we institutionalize these things and move forward in an institution that has a lot of work to do, even though we're, like, as you've mentioned, we're taking our steps towards it, without overburdening folks like you who don't have an off switch, right?
Yeah.
How do we make that happen?
I think that there are a few things that we can do that can resolve a lot of problems, right? So if we think about the Canadian Black Scientists Network with a mission to elevate, make visible, connect, and celebrate. The reason that we have this visible, make visible, because when you have that make visible, when you have that role model that you can identify with, that's there, it's already resolving a lot of problems that you don't even have to touch, right? So because you already have that person that is visible there. So we have to make sure then that have people that are in that position, that visible position, and people that are also approachable, because then you'll be shooting one bird with two stones, because you have that person that's sitting there, and two birds with one stone, right? So you have that person that's sitting there and that can do all those things. So it's important to make visible now. And again, the data is just there when it comes to administration. As we're saying, if you think about it, that administrative position, they have just 0.8% of Blacks in that position, which means that the visibility is not there. If the visibility is there, it will resolve a lot of problems. I'm just talking about Blacks, but at the same time, this applies to almost all minority groups. So that part would do that. Next, we have to connect. So connection means that, and it will make our life easier if we encourage different, you know that there are associations already existing. You know, there will be association from, I don't know, whatever country, maybe, I know like from India, Nigeria, Cameroon, the associations are all there, you know. How can we connect with all of them, you know, bring them all together? So that's the connection. And then the other part is celebrate. You know, once in a while, we don't choose just this month is February forever. Once in a while, we celebrate. Bring people consciously, you know, maybe create a forum where people from different backgrounds can come and showcase maybe their talent somehow. I don't know. You know, so and then the fourth one, again, I'm talking about something from Canadian Black Scientists Network, which applies right across the board. Elevate. Who are those there that want to elevate? So if we put all of those things together, then you wouldn't need to even overburden one person, because it would just, everything would just work out.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lukong, for answering Don's question. And I'm not sure if there is any more question. Yes, Stella, please go ahead.
Okay, just unmuting. Thank you very much. It's been inspiring. I wish there were more teachers like you. My background's probably a little different and not everybody knows me. I'm a retired professor of psychiatry. And my particular interest, because I was a program director of the residency for like 10 years, it's a small group of people, but international medical grads. I don't know if they're on anyone's radar, but you know, what I found and what I felt strongly about as a resident and then as a faculty member was that international medical grads, which could include people from Africa, India, anywhere, Iran, were seen as second-class residents somehow. And that really bothers me. So I am on the Alumni Association board and I'm on the EDI committee of that board. So we're looking at EDI in medicine, and I would love to see it expanded to include residents in medicine, because I think there's even more of a difficulty there. You know, those international medical grads often come through what's called the second round of CARMS, which is the intern and resident matching service. So Canadian grads all get placed in the first round, and then the second round is sort of, you have hundreds and hundreds of international medical grads applying, and they're in a very difficult position. So I don't know what the answer is to that, but that's my interest.
Well, the answer still lies with the College of Medicine in particular is already doing it, because, for example, I'm fortunate enough to be part of the admissions committee this year. So I'm able now to see how the process works, and trusting will tell you that I'm actually contributing to that in terms of trying to see that you have to take people's socioeconomic backgrounds into consideration, how you do some of those interviews. For example, you have somebody who is who comes from a different cultural background, how would you assess them for, I don't know, say my field is breast cancer, how do you do screening, things like that. So, but being part of that committee has been quite helpful. I'm thankful that I'm part of that committee. Another thing is that I'm part of the EDI committee, which Joyce is there, who is our chair of that committee. We are doing a lot of work in that committee, and one of the things that we're doing is just to improve the practices, the practices in terms of hiring students or grad students, undergraduate students, and all of that. So we're doing a lot already at the College of Medicine, and in fact, the admission part of it, there's a lot of improvement. So we have about 800 applications every year, and we just need 100. Yes. So that's already a challenge.
Yeah, it's very important for diversity on the admissions committee, and I guess when it comes to residency, the residency admissions committee. Yeah.
So this has been amazing, and I've heard the word inspirational more than once as well. Unfortunately, our fire, we have to move away from the warmth of the fire. Dawn, I'm so impressed you've got a fire. I've just got a little buzzy fan heater. It's not really the same. It's not really the same. We'll have to find a way to continue this. I'm going to hand to Rifat to close off our meeting, but if I may myself just say thank you so much, Professor Lukong. And if I am pronouncing this correctly, Berry Wall, for everything that you've contributed. I've been re-energized as an educator and as a researcher and as an administrator. I feel something of a call to action to elevate, make visible, connect, and celebrate. But let me hand back to a student in your mentoring role. That seems so appropriate, that the executive lead, our president for the GSA, will close off the session. Very well, Professor Lukong.
Thanks, Dr. Airini, and thanks, Dr. Lukong, for your lively discussion, because I was enjoying every bit of the moment, and I believe our provost, when I was saying like our provost is writing notes, so she has a lot of takeaway message. So on behalf of GSA, I can promise that we will keep this conversation continuing with our senior leaders, and especially in our next president's executive meeting, we will bring this up, and then we will have some insights from our grad students, and we'll propose that to the president's meeting. But yeah, we are very delighted to have you here today. But is this okay for us to stay in touch with you by email or something? Or...
Absolutely. If you know me already, you know that I'm so approachable. Email, text, anything you want, it still works.
Okay, thank you so much. We are so honored to have you here, and thanks everyone for joining this session today. We very much appreciate it. And yeah, going into the weekend, I hope everyone has a lovely weekend. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Professor Airini. Thanks, everybody. And next time we'll do more. We'll talk about this. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rifat, Charlene, Eddie, everyone being here. Thank you so much.